This meeting to order. This is the Holyoke City Council's subcommittee, Finance Subcommittee. Present this evening, members of the committee are to my far left, Councilor Jordan. Next to him, Councilor Fellow, Councilor Tomlin to my right, and Councilor Anderson Burgos. My name is Joe McGivern. We are being televised on the public access channel. We are on Zoom being recorded, and we are being streamed. We are a full committee meeting, so it is not a hybrid meeting this evening. And we will go forward with the agenda as written.
Motion to take item number 1 off the table?
Second.
Motion made and second that we take item number 1 off the table. This is a request under my name for the mayor for Mass General Laws 44, Section 53A. The City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the fiscal year 2024 State 911 Department Training Grant Program, $25,013.16. There is no match. Authorized the grant, establish a fund, and or other method appropriate for the accounting of receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. With us from the police department is Sergeant Zurheide. Sergeant, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Well, we appreciate yours. Sergeant, traditionally, and you have been with us before, so what we like to do is just get a update from you on the grant, how it's going to be used, and anything you think might be worth saying.
Yes, so this is a offshoot of the main PSAP grant, which was already approved by the Finance Committee and Full Committee. This portion of that is it's a separate branch of the PSAP that they offer. So all of our dispatchers have to do 16 hours of continuing education every year, and they do that through a vendor, an MPI vendor. This grant will cover the vendor's fees for those 16 hours, and this grant will also cover any overtime associated with those classes. It'll cover all of our dispatchers, and we worked in the numbers to include 4 additional hires if those came about through anyone that may have quit or leave or retire in the dispatch center. If we hire 4 new ones, those would also be covered during their onboarding training process. And they do have to stay current to be dispatchers, and that's what this money will fund, is that continuing education.
Thank you, Sergeant. Are there any questions from the committee?
Make a motion to be approved. Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve the acceptance of the grant. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Easy enough.
Motion to take item number 2 off the table?
Motion made and seconded that we take item number 2 off the table for discussion. Under my name for the mayor, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Section 44, 53A, the city hereby accepts the provisions of the fiscal 2024 jail arrest diversion grant, $45,000, no match. Authorized the establishment of fund and or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Sergeant?
Yes, so this is another great one that we've done in the past. It's offered through the Department of Mental Health, and it's actually, I know the title is Jail Arrest Diversion Program, but it actually goes towards crisis intervention training. So a large majority of our department have been through this training, but due to retirements and new hires, a substantial portion of our newer officers over the last couple of years haven't attended this training. And these funds will allow approximately 20 officers to go to crisis intervention training. It's a 40-hour, 5-day course, and they teach really how to respond to crisis calls, how to de-escalate situations, and that kind of program. And that will cover any overtime costs associated with sending those officers to that training. And now that course is also taught multiple times over the year. It won't be 20 officers at one time. And that's what that grant is about.
Where does the training take place, Sergeant?
It used to take place in Springfield at the Behavioral Health Network Center out there at their main headquarters. Currently, they went in partnership with South Hadley Police Department, who are now going to be hosting it. So it should be right over the bridge in South Hadley.
Good old Ward 8.
Yes.
Any discussion from the committee? And
Motion to approve the,
motion made
Second.
that we
Accept.
approve the acceptance of the grant and any establishments necessary for the accounting of it. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Passes 5-0. These will come up at our next city council meeting, which is next Tuesday.
motion to take item number 3 off the table?
Thank you, Sergeant. Motion made second, we take item 3 off the table for discussion. Introduced under my name for the mayor in accordance with Mass General Laws, Section 44, 53A. The city hereby accepts the provisions of the fiscal 24 EEA Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program Action Grant. It's $141,680. Does have a 25% in-kind match. We authorize the establishment of fund and other method for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the said grant. Off the table for discussion, all those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Stephanie Cologne, are you here for this?
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you and welcome from the office, from Moped itself. And are you here to make the presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you just walk us through the grant, how it's going to be used, and how you're going to take care of the 25% in-kind match?
Hi, so the grant proposal today is for a cookbook, which will be the recipes for a resilient Holyoke. We are going to be working with lots of partners and organizations in the community to bring educational resources. This will also be part of another initiative that we're working on, which is the Holyoke Food Economy Coalition, which will hopefully serve as a local food policy council for the city of Holyoke. And through this project, we'll be collaborating with partners, community-based organizations. We'll be doing educational resources. We'll also be working with the El Corazon Advisory Group, which works out of Nueva Esperanza, and we are working with them to gather the cultural recipes that will go in the book. And so the in-kind match will be covered through staff time, which is myself, Kayla Rodriguez, and Enlace. And the other portion of that is we have Mass Emotion Funding, which is the program that I work from, and we will be hosting community events for the cookbook. So the idea is to create this book that will make impactful work throughout the year, and also we'll have something like physical with all kinds of resources in it.
Stephanie, what about the printing of the cookbook? Is there going to be editions available to the public?
Yeah, so we'll in the grant list out, I think we have 100 copies that we'll be printing out, but we'll also have a PDF version available. And we're partnering with Linnean Solutions, which is who helped us write the grant. And so through that PDF, we'll be able to share it with the community through the website, through the city website, and through Explore Holyoke.
And how do you solicit the recipes, or do you look, or can people submit them to you?
Yeah, so that's what we're working with Nueva Esperanza for. On the El Corazon group, we're going to be reaching out to the whole city of Holyoke, and anybody can submit any kind of cultural recipes through there, and then we'll have like a selection process with a team of people, and we want recipes from all kinds of cultures. So that's how we'll be choosing the cultural recipes to include.
Because I know Mrs. McGivern has a great recipe for stuffed grape leaves and baked kibinay. So I
I'd
think
love to
I'll
see
mention this
her-
to her.
I'd love to see her submit something to us.
I'll,
we
I'll
can
let her
look
know.
at it.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve?
Motion made, second, that we approve the acceptance of the grant and everything that comes with it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Stephanie, I think that's it, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks,
great
Devin.
night.
Have a good night. Motion to take item number 4 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made, second, that we take item 4 off the table for discussion, introduced under my name for the mayor. In accordance with Mass General Law, Section 4453A, the city council hereby accepts the provisions of the, did we just do this one?
Number 4, that's a shovel.
I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. This is a request to transfer under my name. In order that there is hereby appropriated by transfer in fiscal year 2024, $30,000. It comes from the power shovel operator, $10,000. Pay waste recycle coordinator, $10,000. Senior civil engineer, $10,000, totaling the 30 into professional engineering services for a grand total of $30,000. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I believe we have Carl Rossi with us. Carl, welcome. Any chance we have a new city engineer yet?
Not yet, but hopefully soon. We're
Okay.
looking for candidates as we speak right now, so.
Well, we appreciate it. And knowing you are an engineer, would you like us, and this is, I think, a request under you at the moment, could you just walk us through why there's a surplus, where the money's coming from, and where it's going, and how you intend to use it?
These monies that are coming from are from these open positions that we have right now, that through today have I don't want to say a surplus, but we haven't used those positions as of yet, so I could transfer the money from those positions into the professional services so we could use it for a consultant engineer to stopgap this time between us getting a new candidate for city engineer.
Okay, and the, okay, and you, can you hire the consulting engineer without doing an RFP? Is this something that is temporary? Okay.
Yes, not yet, yes, I worked it through purchasing and we have everything in place according to Mass General Law, so we can hire that directly, yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councilor Jordan?
Is it a firm you're going to use, or is it an individual that you're planning on using the services from?
It's an individual,
Okay. And there's a negotiated rate,
yes,
and you have a services contract with that person?
correct.
Okay, was the council provided with a copy of the services contract?
No, it wasn't, sorry.
Okay, that's kind of an important document for us to review. We would need to see a copy of that. And what was the hourly rate and what are the terms of employment?
It's $150 an hour, 2 days a week for the next 3 months, but I'm hopefully not thinking about using it for the whole 3 months, obviously, trying to get the new city engineer on board before then.
Okay. How was 150 an hour arrived at?
That was her rate that we negotiated with her, with the person.
How is that compare with how much our engineer was getting paid? And was that market tested? Like, how did we do an analysis to see what other people of comparable services are getting paid?
It would cost us a lot more than $150 an hour, and we're obviously paying for a consulting rate for, compared to our city engineer, which was making, I don't know the exact figures, but I'm gonna say $95,000 a year, which is way less than $150 an hour.
Right. So when you say it would cost us a lot more than 150 other people, can we get some sort of cross comparison just so that the council knows we did our due diligence on this? Because we would need to see, okay, and even if you want to blind it, that's okay, but you should have the final applicant, and then who were the other people you looked at or considered, you know, whether it was experience and then hourly rate, and then, you know, have, say, at least 3 different people, I would assume, that you looked at, and then show us the cross comparison that says, okay, this one was 200 an hour and had these qualifications, this person was 150 an hour with these qualifications, this one was only 100 but had less qualifications, something like that, so that we can say, you know, well, our job is to check you, right? And your job is to go do the work. So I'm supposed to, in order for me to sign off on the 30 grand, I need to see the services contract and then a cross compare that you did your due diligence to come up with the 150 rate. So that's kind of this, just so we have that for the file and the backup.
Yeah, I could do that, but the thing is I had a need to get an engineer quickly because I have no engineering department as it is right now. In order to get the projects moving along, we hired this person to do the work, and she came recommended through Chris Baker, our former city engineer who worked with this person previously. And she's on board as it is because we had some money in professional services contract in the engineering department, $3,500. So she's already been working as it is as of this date.
Right, okay. So you've decided to hire somebody into the position. My point is, you need to give us the backup because you're claiming that you have a services contract and you did the prior comparison. So we would need to see that data
Okay.
to just show us the due diligence you did. You know, because Carl, what we're trying to avoid is a situation where, you know, a 2-minute phone call with you and, you know, whoever, I have no idea who this person even is, but that just says, oh yeah, I want 150 an hour, you know, and there was no due diligence. You know, we have to be careful on just checking to make sure that type of backup is there.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm in favor of moving forward to approve this, but can you please give us that by the council meeting for next week, please?
I'll try, yes, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carl. I understand, and good points by Councilor Jordan. Professional services do come under the mayor and under the department head's domain, but it is important that we understand the reason the money is being spent, that it matches what services you've chosen for. But under the emergency type situation too, I'm more than willing to go forward and vote in favor of this. Is there any further discussion?
Motion to approve, second.
Motion made second that we approve the request for the transfer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Carl, that'll go to the city council meeting on Tuesday. And can you hang on for a quick second?
Sure.
Item number 5.
Item number 5 at the table?
Motion made second that we take item 5 off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. This was introduced by Councilor Jordan, Councilor Bacon. I think some people signed it, that's why that name came up. But at the same time, was referred to the Finance Committee by the full City Council that Viola provides the estimated cost for street sweeping for the next fiscal year for the purpose of decreasing the sewer rate and required the sewer enterprise fund. This is a citywide service that is properly paid for should be in the general fund. A written response is acceptable. This is a recently filed order, but this is a request that's been out there for a while.
Years.
And we got a communication today that the Board of Public Works Commission, which I understand, in the connection with the consultant Abrams,
Yes, I believe.
is working on analyzing the contract, which we understand. But we're kind of hoping, or I'm not going to speak for Councilor Bacon, but some of us are kind of hoping that at some point we could see, even if they're estimated, these costs, so we know when we mention things like this, we know what we're talking about. Do you have anything to add to this tonight?
Yeah, the thing is that the Board of Public Works wants to make sure everything is in order before it comes to council. So our next Board of Public Works meeting is on Monday, And discussion will be made regarding this, and then we'll go forward from there.
Could I add one thing, Mr. Chairman?
And Counselor Jordan.
Before we turn it over to the author, I would just say we did receive an email from Veolia who said that they can compile this information. They just needed some time to get the request. So they did respond to the council to say they're working on the information request. Thank you.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So from my perspective, Veolia is our contracting organization and entity that we've been working with now for almost 20 years. And this request is directly to them as part of a department of the city. And it's a pretty straightforward request. And I understand that they are able to break out these costs and provide us with a number. And so before we move ahead with a rate, I'd like the answer to the question. Thank you.
Veolia, I did speak and to do some pre-work to understand when and we can. And I understand the meeting's on Monday, Carl, and that's, if we get even if we just got some preliminary numbers, I think it's important to the sewer rate. I think it's important to a discussion that's been ongoing for some time. I also understand that it's not a real simple answer because there are some moving targets in terms of in terms of apparatus itself. If you need to purchase new apparatus or Veolia, I believe the contract is the entire city gets swept once every year, and then everything else is not by demand. Special events, a neighborhood that thinks that they need some extra cleaning. And I know that they've always been great with responding to whether it's the city council or the mayor or the commissioners themselves, to doing this type of work. But I just hope we can get some numbers quickly so we can try to come to some agreement on a compromised sewer rate.
Try to get the numbers as quickly as possible.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just note that when we're talking about budgets, we're always hearing that things aren't exact in terms of the cost that will be arrived at. And even with the budget for the sewer fund that we've been talking about, the rates ranged anywhere from $787 to $828. So I think if we can get numbers that are within a reasonable range, and I have confidence that our contractor would be providing as accurate numbers as they could, because certainly they appear to have an interest in being our contractor. So I see no motive for them to particularly come in low or high in this regard, because I'm sure we'll be doing a due diligence and a comparison in this regard anyway. So, I have confidence that the number will be reasonable. And I would expect that it would consider things like the equipment and the costs and the labor costs and the time, and also perhaps whatever impact that MS4 regulation may be having in terms of maybe we have to do more than we've been doing in the past. I don't know. So there is a certain amount of complexity to it, but it's not rocket science. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
So shall we table it? Or
Yeah.
Table. Motion to table.
Motion made second to lay on the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Carl, I think that's it, but thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening. Motion to take item number 6 off the table?
Motion made second to take item 6 off the table for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. This is a revisit. I just put it on the agenda tonight to keep it in the limelight. I think it's important to keep an understanding. I'm not looking for thinking mayor may or may not be able to do any action tonight, but it's a request. It's the request for transfer of $250,000 from the stabilization fund to the mayor's contracted services treasurer's support. It's also went hand in hand with Councilor McGee's order in the presentation we had by Mooneyfin at the last Finance Committee meeting. Is there anything new, Mayor, that you wanted to report? I note the treasurer is not here at the moment.
No, I think it's pretty clear on my standpoint where we are. I've heard where the council stands. We'll just keep biting the bullet and take it as it exists. What I can do is, agree to quarterly, you do 3 months at a time or whatever the case, and we could do it that way. The flip side of it is, there is a contract. That level of, despite what folks might think one way or another, it is a level of micromanagement, but I understand that you are the gatekeeper of funds in this account. And so if we want to operate that way, I am very comfortable with it, because we need to get stuff done in that office, regardless of where folks think or stand one way or another politically. It's a very important and critical office to this institution here in the city of Holyoke. And anything we can do to try to keep the ball rolling in this uphill battle that we're all going through, obviously will be greatly appreciated. Quarterly, what is it, $25,000 a month? So if we're coming back in January, it'll be $75,000. Come back in January. I think I did have conversations with Rory and Mass MuniFin, and I'm in agreement with having detailed reporting, benchmarks that we can measure. And so ideally what would happen is 75,000, come back in January, go over those benchmarks, go over the progress, and then, see where things go from there. Is the best solution I could think of right now, to try to figure out how to meet at the middle here and get what we need for that office. So other than that, I would just throw it away, and, I'll scrape things together and figure out how to get stuff done. So.
Mayor, I think we had a very frank discussion with everybody at the Finance Committee meeting, and I think we spent a lot of time on what the problems historically were, which was fine. But most of us here knew that. And what we want, or at least I can speak for myself, is to hear about what the strategy is, and not just what happened in the first phase, which we did get some answers, but what is the next phase? I don't want to micromanage. I'm not against spending this money, okaying this money, but there's two areas that concern me, and that's why I held back on voting yes. Not that it would matter at the full city council meeting, but the two areas that concern me are, one, a suggestion was made to hire a couple of temps while there's vacancies in the office. I didn't get a commitment from anybody, but I think there wasn't any objection to it, but it makes sense that professional temp services would have some people qualified to do some of the input work, in the office, while MuniFin wouldn't have to be doing that, and they could be training, the more experienced workers in the office as to what the future is. Two is more important, and probably the most important thing to me, and I don't think it's MuniFin's area to make sure it happens, but are we getting everybody on Munis? And I don't mean just the treasurer. I mean the entire city.
That's a big one.
And that's it's not your fault. You inherited this. A predecessor fired a person who was charged with doing this. That person that got fired, not that it matters, was won a suit against the city for being wrongfully fired. But regardless, it's over a decade. It's more than a decade, but it's over a decade since the city council agreed that was the correct path to go. And we're not, again, Mayor Garcia, you inherited this. I understand it doesn't happen overnight, but is there a plan to get everybody into Munis?
Yeah, I think actually today I just met the person that was recently hired to help coordinate and get this, get everybody into Munis. I think there's a target date currently. Departments have access to, what is it, a practice mode of Munis, the testing mode of it, and there's a target date of when the full transition is going to happen. And we do have someone, oh man, her name is escaping me already, that seems to be an expert in the Hannah? Hannah.
Thank you.
in the Munis world, Mass Munisfin and Sarah, you know, she brings in a level of knowledge and expertise in the treasury world and understands the accounting function of municipal finance that can help really get things in a better system flowing direction. And while that's happening, you know, we're all working together in establishing putting systems in place to be sure that whatever operational direction we're going, that we're sustaining it and strengthening the accountability of making sure that we never go backwards. But I understand that, you know, again, like it's a hard pill to swallow because the work is expensive and extensive. It doesn't feel good for me either, but it's work that I know we have to do, and I promise that you will see the return in that investment more than the dollar amount that we're actually spending. And actually, I think in a lot of ways we've been seeing that return on investment. But I think my takeaway was from that meeting was we're just not doing a good job painting the picture for you so that people understand. And so that was the conversation we've been having and trying to figure out the best way to filter that, because it is technical and none of us here are experts in the field. So how do we simplify it in the best way possible so that the public and members of the council understand the complexity behind what needs to be done and why it costs so much was my biggest takeaway. Takeaway. And I think that's why I feel like, you know, maybe the quarterly idea might work better since we can piecemeal it and you know, try to understand it together as we try to build up the department.
I appreciate that. And who, under what department, or who is supervising, overseeing the person who is working on Munis?
Hannah. Temporary services under, remember? Under ARPA? Okay. So it's funded through ARPA. I don't think she's under any real department, so just, I guess, say the mayor's office.
She's under the mayor's office?
Yeah,
Okay.
but she's, Rory, in the treasurer's office, Rory and Kelly have been the two that have been spearheading a lot of the work around the Munis. I think we sent a bunch of people to training too. So there isn't any one person directly responsible to her, but they're just working together.
Let me expand on my question. My real question is,
who's overseeing?
Historically, and this may have changed because time has changed and we have a lot of new people, and especially department heads in key finance positions that, you know, are more apt to be able to adapt to Munis, which can be a little complex, and we know the software can be very expensive too. You know, whether the person, you know, is working daily out of the mayor's office or not is not my question. My question is the mayor's office telling the department heads, this isn't a choice you have. This is a mandate.
Absolutely. We had a department head meeting.
That, in the past, that has not always worked.
No. I mean, it's the same thing with payroll, which everyone is doing, by the way. It's a direction we're going, and it has been communicated to the departments multiple times electronically, and then again at our department head meeting. We are transitioning, we're moving in this direction, and there hasn't been actually any kickback at all. Everyone's like, okay, no problem. But yes, no, we're moving in this direction. Whether folks like it or not, we have to do this. It was the same thing with payroll and other key strategies we've implemented that requires everyone to move in. And, you know, I got to say, it's been pretty positive. There hasn't been any real resistance.
And is there any software that we need to buy, any additional from Munis?
Can I speak?
To our city auditor?
No.
Do not say that in the chambers to the mayor, can you speak? That got someone in deep trouble a long, long time ago.
So we did buy additional modules through the ARPA for the program to have to do with the personnel department, so we can have like employee self-service and people can go on and get their taxes and change their address. and also take a look at their rates, make sure they're in the right union. So any assistance that they need as far as personnel and benefits and things like that, they'll be able to log on themselves, which is really great. And maybe we won't have to actually give out and mail out like check stubs and stuff like that. So that should save us some money. And I do have to say that what Hannah did and what Kelly did in personnel is she sent out a survey to all the departments saying, what do you need training in? And they all answered as best as they could. And then I did get together with Hannah. We went through all the training, what people need, what all departments need, what some departments need. So although she maybe is not under the direct, supervision of anyone in particular, she is working with all of us. And we are creating a training schedule, I want to say, for everyone, so that they probably will be better trained on the new Munis than they were on the old Munis. So that is really good for me.
It's good to hear about payroll. It goes a lot deeper than payroll, but it is good to hear about payroll and trainings. Councilor Jordan and Councilor Bacon.
Even I fill out a timesheet, believe it or not.
Great. Hey, thank you for coming in, Mayor, to give us an update on this. Again, some of the things that those of us that are skeptical about the sheer size of the amount of time, as you know, I voted for a whole year's worth of appropriation for the treasurer's office, and we need, now that we're apparently, again, did not realize this was going to be a multi-year thing at the time, but now that we're into the second year, I like the quarterly approach. That's, again, one of the reasons that I voted no on this is I'm not convinced, or I have to be convinced, you take it whichever way you want to read it, that we actually need to do this for 2 more years with this consultant. I would like to see specific benchmarks and reporting every 3 months that explains why 3 more months is justified. And so now that this was voted down the other day and is currently sitting here, are you paying for that now out of ARPA money?
No, I think, oh man, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I believe there is a identified revenue source Rory has access to that makes it an eligible cost, so it's within our ability to just pay it for about another month or 2, but
What's that source?
off the top of my head, I don't know.
I think one of the things he said was they were going to play around with the hours of the consultant and less hours, and
I see.
I don't know.
There's
Might be a little,
whether, yeah.
little flexibility by the consultant, but
Okay. In terms of, so I think we're on the same page on the reporting and the benchmarks, the quarterly funding. I think as far as the micromanagement, again, this comes back to what perhaps your vision of the city council is and what certainly my vision of the city council is. And, we're going to have an election here in a few weeks. And if my vision is disconnected from the electorate, they'll send me on my way, which is fine if that's what they choose. But I have a view that this department is so radically dysfunctional, it does need micromanagement from everybody in leadership. It's one thing to say, do we need to micromanage the water department? Do we need to micromanage the Holyoke Gas and Electric? Probably not. Do we need to radically well-run, strongly put together, well-led departments? No. That clearly doesn't need micromanagement. Treasurer's office is unfortunately not on that list, and they need a hell of a lot of micromanagement from you and from us. And making sure that, because we're watching literally millions of dollars of tax money being wasted by this department. And this is waste. This whole thing of us spending $900,000 is all waste. It's trying to use this as a lifeline so you don't have other waste, right? Which is probably a bigger waste, but a normal functioning department, we should not be spending $900,000 to bring in consultants. I would dare say Chicopee isn't doing that, Westfield isn't doing that. This is something unique going on because for whatever reason that it's elusive to us all, we can't get the trains on time down there so that things are working the way they're supposed to be. So, yes, I think this should be on a very short leash. I think we owe that to the taxpayers as to what's going on. So in terms of our other suggestion, and Councilor McGivern had brought it up, was filling the 2 openings that we have there with some temporary services. Does that make sense to you in the treasurer, and are you open to doing that?
I think they're doing that. No, can't remember. So I'm open to do what the department needs to do. I mean, I think they're actively looking to fill those 2 openings. It's not just sitting there. It's also finding people that, I mean, they're not, the pool of candidates is slim, so you just don't want to throw anybody in there. But if we can get them filled sooner rather than later, I think we all agree, and the treasurer agrees that, we need to do that.
But wasn't it agreed, or it made sense, that rang a bell somewhere, that we use temporary services? We're doing that apparently with the engineer. I think that we would use those lines to get account temps or other people in place until you can get a permanent
Yeah,
hire.
for some reason, I think there's more to that. I mean, I think the way it's described now, it's hard to disagree with that, but I'm sure there's another side of this story that I just can't represent at this moment.
Okay. If you could look into that and get back to us, that would be extremely helpful, because to run it, the consultant felt that 5 people was the right number. The question is, do we have 5 people that know what they're doing, and do we have all hands on deck? And unfortunately, we only have 3 of the positions filled, and some of them need to be brought up to the speed, and we have 2
I
vacancies.
think 1 just got filled. The floating clerk.
So I would recommend that you look into that further, and we have the resources to do it. So, we've already budgeted those funds. The other thing that I feel is important, and I don't know if this is shared by others, but we need to begin the long-term solution process of filling the treasurer position. And that's not going to happen overnight, as you well know, right? So we have the luxury of having Rory in there in this sort of pitching in sort of role, but what the long-term solution is to get the candidate. Can we at least start posting the position to begin to recruit the candidate that we can get, so that we're not here 2 years from now beginning that process? That process should begin now, and that we begin recruiting the person.
The goal here for me is to make that role attractive enough where we can expand our pool of candidates and find a quality. I really don't have time for trial and error. I think, the salary alone right now doesn't really expand our pool that much. And then the fact that you have to live in the city doesn't expand. And I think we learned last time when we were doing interviews, you have to actually live in the city for 2 years before you could be appointed to these elected roles. And so that's what limited the candidate I think you spoke highly of, the CPA guy. So that's what ruled them out and left you 2 candidates. And on top of that, you got issues in that department that people don't, it's a risk. It's a huge risk for anybody to leave wherever their profession is, to just go in there and potentially risk their reputation and their career. Because right now, the way it's set up, whoever goes in there, you're set up to fail.
It's a turnaround.
So it's, and these are reasons why the structural changes are at play now, and I think we're all waiting for that. We might have to figure out where that's held up, but you have the changing the position from elected to appointed. That builds some flexibility there. We can look at what other treasurer departments are making and make sure that it's competitive. And I think at that point, not only will we be able to expand our pool of candidates, we strengthen the accountability part too, because whoever we hire, let's say they're not doing well, we don't have to wait till next election season or whatever now they're directly appointed and we can just terminate if they're not doing a good job. So I think ideally, and Rory was clear when he came in here and you guys appointed him, was like, we're going to hold down the fort and also do what we can to help with transitioning as we try to strengthen that department. But right now, I mean, we can't post because he's in that role unless he actively steps down. But even if we did, and he does step down, we're taking risks. We're going to put in okay candidates in there and not know whether they're going to do a good job, and we can't actively remove them until election time. It's just, meanwhile, there's stuff in there that just needs to get done. And there's two things going on. There's the day-to-day stuff, and then there's what we often refer to as the catch-up stuff. And right now, the department can only focus on one or the other, even if fully staffed, because, and I think the reasons why things haven't came to this office or to this level is because we've done the day-to-day, we've never done any catch-up proactive stuff. I mean, the property preservation group, the treasurer is an important part of that initiative and never would go to any of the meetings because they had to do payroll, they had to do reconciliations, they had to do this, they had to catch up on that, they had to respond to a city councilor's inquiry, or whatever the case might be. No catch-up work was being done. But now we're doing so much with getting people on payment arrangements, tax titles, where day-to-day did get backed up a little bit. So it's the focus is, that's where it gets a little complex. But, to your question about posting, finding somebody now, it's it's going to be challenging for sure, a little bit distracting.
Well, it takes time to fill the position, and if the issue comes out that it needs more salary or it needs whatever, there's a lot of options available to us on that. We could either change the salary, which is set by ordinance. If you find the right candidate and we have an ability to make that modification, we could make that modification. If we need to do a special act, think about it. We can turn around special acts here really quick in terms of, when we had the vacancy when Morse left, right? And Todd didn't want to serve as the acting mayor. That thing got bing, bing, binged, right through within 2-3 weeks. So, we can do whatever we all collectively want to do here in making these things happen. We should have legal look at, is an appointed for an interim. I know the state law also says you can appoint interim department heads irrespective of the charter. There is rules on that as well under state law. I think it's 61A is the law. You might want to take a look at that. The bottom line is no harm in posting the position on a permanent basis to be recruiting. That doesn't mean you say yes to the first person that comes in the door, but you're actively recruiting the candidate, and you say, salary commensurate with experience, and be looking for the person that you think is best. And then at that point, but as far as Rory goes, I think he's been pretty transparent that, hey, when you get the person, I'm ready to step down, and then we can find some other role for Rory. Maybe he becomes the assistant or what have you. But what I'm concerned is on the current trajectory, this discussion doesn't take place for 2 more years from now. And I think we're not making use of the next 2 years to fill the position.
I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think the person we need in that position right now is already there. Rory has brought a level of attention and knowledge and time into the job. You would think that he's been doing it for years. The issue is that it's balancing.
So you want Rory to be the treasurer?
It's catching up. It's climbing Mount Everest in his shorts and his t-shirt. You know what I mean? It's like,
okay,
we're putting out the fires. The minute there's another hole unplugged, we're covering that hole, and we're just not getting through the icebergs as effectively as we could because of the systemic catch-up things that need to go on, plus all the day-to-day needs that happen right now. So it's a combination of things all being thrown at that office at the same time. My fear is, again, for anybody that comes in from the outside because they are a strong business acumen but never has done the role of treasury or understands Mass General Law, municipal, they got to learn all that, learning curves. So I think we've gained a great deal of momentum right now. We're hitting the ground running. what we need to do, and I'll look into the special acts and how quickly we can move them without having to go through a council approval of.
No, it requires council approval, but the council approved, but.
Whatever's in front of you guys right now. I think
Nothing.
we wanted to put the ballot on the question.
There's
of ballot.
nothing in front of us.
Nothing.
There's something in committee right now to change the position from elected to appointed, is it not?
Well, I'll let the chairman of ordinance, because there was also a discussion about the financial policies and how this all fits together. I think there was an opportunity, you were invited to come in, but that night, apparently September 12th didn't work for you. But nevertheless, is it, so what you're saying then, because this is new information, and I just want to make sure I'm getting it clear. You see Rory as the guy. He's who you want
He's
as
plugging the
treasurer.
hole right now until we make the systemic changes to allow us to, at that time, officially post and appoint a candidate that we, but the fact that it's an elected versus an appointed, my hands are tied. What's the point?
I think you've got a lot of support here about the elected and appointed. I think
Right.
the issue is the council, and I can't speak for everybody but just myself, is we're trying to understand how all the pieces fit together with the CAFO and the auditor and the treasurer and all the new structure, and we want that all laid out and a discussion to take place with you as to how that
Yep.
all pieces together. And I know you have ideas on all of that.
Well, so the strategy is clear, and the blueprint is in front of the council. So currently, we have wanting to change the position from elected to appointed.
Right.
That's in committee. We want to bring in a CAFO to better cross-coordinate and manage so that we're making informed decisions. I think that's in committee. And then we have the financial policies manual that identifies who's going to be responsible for what, that clearly outlines the responsibilities of each of these different functions. And that's in committee. And so, and until we start making these systemic changes, currently we have in committee, the needs of accessing resources so we can keep plugging away at the day-to-day stuff while we work on these things. So that's the blueprint, the strategy I have in front of you, and I'm just on this side of the aisle, I'm just waiting around until we get some action here.
We're ready. I'm ready to go and have this conversation as quickly as possible. I think everybody's waiting for that, and I believe that's. But I'll let Linda address the speed of it. Pieces. I guess I'll just make my final point on this thing about the treasurer and getting the permanent candidate. I think we need to find a way to begin this process of who this person is, and if you're going to ultimately at the end of the day say you want Rory. But whatever we're going to lay out for the qualifications for this person has got to be, on education, on background experience. Have they run serious financial enterprises before? We're probably going to have to, if we're going to have somebody appointed, you're going to have it all laid out with a job description and the qualifications. I just feel like that's an important part of beginning that process now. And if there's legal different components that we have to do, then let's get the law department involved and let's see what we need to do as a team to put those pieces in place.
Just to clarify, not that I want Rory as our permanent treasurer. I think for right now, where we are plugging the hole, he's the perfect candidate until we can figure.
No, I think
other
we're in
things.
agreement with you on that. I don't think anyone's trying to take
okay.
that away. Yeah, we're on the same page on that,
right.
He's the interim guy. It's just that what some of us are arguing is, let's begin the recruiting process for the permanent person. And that is not going to be easy. And if we wait 2 years before everything is all fixed, if it ever gets fixed, and I got to say, some of us who have been here a while, I'm really skeptical that the 2 years of the consultant would even fix it long term, because everybody's been saying that. Okay, so for me, I need to see to believe. I'm a bit of a skeptic that there's just another consultant saying it'll all be better in 2 years, and when the consultant leaves, it doesn't revert. So
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. And I've always been open at the very beginning since I came in here, like, guys, I want you to understand what's happening, because this is where the critical issues are that's impacting everything. But I can tell you just from my experience in a micro level, working at the town of Blandford, where there was a huge embezzlement issue, DOR was threatening to take over the town, micro level, but still same concept here, where Sarah Hunter came up there, similar strategy and tasks, turned the town around, and we were able to invest in all sorts of capital needs and do roads. All of a sudden, monies just became available that the town just didn't know they had or they weren't getting because we didn't have the proper functioning system internally. So I just, you know, and not only for Blandford, many towns across the Commonwealth, Sean Cronin, who's been in front of this body several times with recommendations on how to improve your core function of government. The DLS works with her, often consults with her to help other communities. So that's why I feel very confident in, and I know it's extensive, it sounds expensive, and it's not that we're gonna fix it in 3 years. Ideally, that's the idea we would love to, hopefully in another year. But it puts us on some sort of strategic path. I do level though, however, is that we're just not communicating it good enough for you guys to really come around and understand and wanna support it. And so I'm not frustrated at you not wanting to support it. Like, I think that the concerns are good concerns that you have, and they're good concerns that the public should have. And, you know, I really want to get to a point where it's palatable and understandable so that we can just do it and get it done. That's all.
Thank you, gentlemen, because we have 4 people that want to speak, and I'm one of them. But I'm going to wait my turn. I'm going to recognize Councilor Vacan, but before I do that, just want to note that Councilor Israel Rivera has joined us by Zoom. And Israel, your hand is recognized. You'll be speaking right after Councilor Vacan. Councilor Vacan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's about 3 things that I want to touch upon. One, in the presentation that we had, we asked for a deliverable, and that was a spreadsheet that indicated to us what monies have been saved and what revenues have been recognized in the year that we spent $300,000 for. Haven't seen the spreadsheet yet. That would be very helpful for establishing a baseline from which we can then measure the next quarter. The person that we need to recruit for the position is a person who wants to do a turnaround. There's lots of people out in the world that like coming in and cleaning up departments, agencies, and organizations. They kind of thrive on that. I don't think we're in a position to fix it, to turn it over to a maintenance person, because Rory, quite frankly, just doesn't have the skill set to do it. The one with the skill set is the consultant, and the consultant's here, 1 or 2 days a week, which I think is why they need the 3 years. But, so I'm looking for the baseline spreadsheet from which to look forward to the measurables each quarter. That's me, and I think that's what we asked the consultant to give us. I haven't seen it yet. You know, so the numbers work for me. Talking in general terms, we all know. We get it, we understand it, and we know we need to clean it up. So that's point 1. Point 2, the order to change the treasurer from elected to appointed has been sitting in charter and rules for 2 years. And as the chair is fond of saying, everything goes to charter and rules to die. Well, apparently he's keeping up a tradition. It's sitting there for 2 years. All the chair of charter and rules needs to do is take it up, bring it to the council, and we will send it to the state. Finance policies came to ordinance in August. I was going to take them up in September. You were not available. I'll be taking them up in November. It took a good part of the year for them to get pulled together. It was a big project. We all get it. I hope by the time I take them up, all of the people on the committee have read them. They're extensive, as you know.
Yep.
So people have had them now since September, so I hope they're going to be able to come into committee well-informed, you know, to be able to perhaps take some action on it. Relative to the CAFO, yes, we do need to reorganize, but we can't just keep building more government on top of more government while we reorganize. We have to move the structure relative to the elected and the appointed, so then you have the flexibility to say, okay, this will also be that. Because right now we can't say that. If we get the appointed through the state, then you can call the treasurer whatever you want to call him. The treasurer, the CAFO, whatever. That's where I'm coming from. And I understand organizations, I understand budgets, and I understand turnarounds. But this is the information that we need so that we have the accountability and the transparency for the public. And that's where I'm coming from, and those are my major points relative to this. We will be taking up the finance policies in November, but we can't approve a CAFO. We don't even have a job description.
Okay, so I think in your first point, and probably in some of the points in the other, and I'm sorry, Counselor, there's some misguided information when you're saying an opinion of sorts. But nevertheless, on your first point, I do agree that we do need some benchmarks, and we need to be better at communicating and what it is we're trying to do and show the progress so that you can see and be convinced of the work we're doing. So I think I've agreed that in our process to date, folks are falling short there. Number two, charters and rules. Yeah, that's in committee. I don't know why it's being held up or what's taking long, but yeah, that's in committee. The point number three, I wasn't questioning how long you were taking. I was just saying that it's in committee. It's in front of the council, going through your process. So that's fine. It's coming in November.
I'm just explaining.
Yeah, we'll be there, and I know the rep that authored it from the DLS, I got to make sure I have the date because I want to make sure she can make it, but wants to be there just to kind of go over, well, she authored it and kind of the process of how they got to that.
I mean, we could go to a December date too.
When the council's ready. I mean, I think we're kind of getting used to waiting. So the other thing about
We
the
were all waiting patiently.
The other thing about the CAFO and you're right, I don't think you are understanding, we're not, in the policies manual describes and we do have a job description that we're ready to share, and we got to get it reflected in ordinance. I think we're waiting for the ordinance to take it up so that we can get it reflected in the Schedule A.
We need the
but
job
it's
description.
not, yeah.
I've asked for that months ago.
Okay.
Just saying.
I got it to you. We got it. No problem.
So there's a few of us waiting.
Say that again?
I said there's a few of us waiting.
I guess everybody's waiting for everybody, and this is.
I know, we'll have to move the
And
down.
this is where the CAFO is important. And I'm not saying the CAFO is going to be directly responsible and in charge of it. It's an extension of me. Right now, I'm operating both inward and outward, and I can do that because it's just who I am. And CAFO, obviously, much more experience and knowledge around, actually knows how to do capital planning, knows how to build its own financial forecasting model, knows how to, it's the TJ Plant of Springfield,
You're the
right?
CAFO in our charter.
I'm the CAFO, the CEO, the chief of staff,
That's our
the CFO,
charter.
I'm the public relations
That's our
guy.
city charter.
And cheerleader.
That's my point, though. So I'm inward and outward. I'm doing the day-to-day management. I'm responding to the needs, working together with Tanya, trying to focus on. I go to the negotiations with the unions. I'm consistently meeting with financial departments, going over objectives, making sure we're hitting our internal benchmarks, going over all of the warrants as they appear on my desk, making sure that doing all that while also attending to the needs of the public, because everybody wants to meet with the mayor and everybody wants an answer yesterday. And there's issues that pop up and everybody needs the mayor there. And that's fine. I respond, I do my thing. I try to be as responsive and communicative and present as possible while also managing the internal day-to-day. And the incident that recently took place, for about 3 days, I haven't been able to check one email just so that I can focus on this particular incident that's happened with the shooting incident, and then also work on this plan that we're trying to prepare for you guys so we can support and tackle some public safety issues. Haven't been able to check emails for 3 days. I finally got through them. And those are things that need attention internally.
That's why you're the mayor.
That is true. And so I'm presenting the CAFO position to help with this internal day-to-day management is extension of the mayor's office and
We,
something much
we
more
understand
skilled.
your position in this regard.
Now, however you feel toward me, just as an elected official, that's fine. That's what I signed up for, and we deal with it. But I lead through the lens of management. I've brought forward to you a blueprint that I think is going to help improve the efficiency of how we operate so that we're not wasteful with local taxpayer resources, so that we're investing in the needs that we need to, and that we're making informed decisions so we can take care of the day-to-day operations and citizens of the city as they expect. And so that's all I'm presenting. I get it. I'm an elected mayor. I have to deal with the politics. I'm hoping that somewhere here we can finally get over this and make some responsible decisions so that we're not vulnerable. We're a vulnerable city.
If I may, through the chair. So I will attempt to respond to this in the way that I'm trying to speak about the matter. And I'm trying to speak about the matter from the perspective of organization and development. In order to be able to add a new high-level administrative position that would cost more than your position costs, we need to change the structure first so that we're not adding it on top again of another layer of bureaucracy. Because if we just add the position now, we're still going to have an elected treasurer, an elected this, an appointed that, and we're not going to have the structure changed. We're just going to have another layer on top of it. So where I'm coming from is we need to do first things first. We need to get the treasurer position changed to appointed.
Okay.
So then you will have the flexibility. I do not know why the chair of the committee will not take it up. You've made it very clear you would like it taken up. So I don't know what
So
to
there's
say to you
that.
other than I will be happy at our next city council meeting to make the motion to pull the order out of committee. And if the council will so vote it, we'll send it up to the state.
That'll be great.
Is that what you would like?
Whatever works. What I'm saying is that on
Okay.
my end, and I'm not saying it rudely or disrespectfully at all, believe me,
No, but
all my
I,
strategies are in front of you. I'm just waiting.
right,
So
but
just
I'm
however you
serious. I
guys
mean, we're all
wanna-
kind of waiting, but some of us see one thing needs to happen before the other.
Got it.
And I will happily make that motion at the next city council meeting if that will help get things moving. If the council supports it and approves it, it'll go up to the state and then that will start. And that's how we did the mayor thing and that happened quickly enough. Right? Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I'm a little, I guess on the one hand, I guess from Councilor Jourdain, I'm hearing that we need to possibly recruit and try to get another position so that when we do change this, we're already like hitting the ground running. And in the actual meeting, I was more of kind of like in the position of where Councilor Bacon is, because it kind of sounds like one is asking for a position to kind of be created so that we can start recruiting and begin this process, right? And the other one is asking for the actual process to begin of changing the treasurer position first, right? So those are two conflicting arguments. For me, in the beginning, I was kind of in the same position of Councilor Bacon where we should go through this process first. But having heard the argument about the CAFO, and if we can actually clarify what the acronym stands for the public,
Chief Administrative Financial Officer.
right? It kind of sounds like that's what Councilor Jourdain is kind of asking for, in my opinion, right? I don't know. Councilor Jourdain, I don't want to speak for you. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like that's something similar to what you're asking for, right? And the wheels are kind of in motion. So I'm kind of leaning towards, yes, the other order is sitting in charter and rules, but it sounds like the quicker fix could be the CAFO, right? And then we begin and continue the process of reorganizing and restructuring the treasurer's position. Because overall, other communities and other municipalities still have a mayor and a town administrator. Or they'll have a treasurer with a CAFO too on at the same time. So like, it's not that it's something that's foreign with regards to public administration and municipalities. Although I do hear the argument where it makes sense to go through the process just so that we do it the right way or the way we're supposed to do it. But ultimately, it makes sense to entertain the CAFO position, and if it is kind of like similar to what Councilor Jordan is requesting, it kind of makes sense, I have to say. If I'm off with any of the inferences I'm making right now, please correct me. But that's pretty much what I've heard from everyone.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there is no reason for what the process I'm talking about, having the treasurer go from elected to appointed, not to be happening at the same time that we would be looking for the person that the mayor wants. They can be parallel activities going on.
Ideally, I was hoping we could take care of this treasury thing first. That's why we introduced it a while ago.
Right. But we could move it and move the other thing too.
However you guys, I think in the grand scheme of it, I think we all agree to the end goal. We're just trying to figure out how to get there. And this is where it matters here, the community coming together to talk about how we want to form our government. So, I just want to make it a point that these things are in front of you, and, I'm happy to get more and continue to contribute to the conversation in which way I can. Just let me know how we want to move forward.
My turn.
I'll be after you, Joe.
You may.
Okay.
I've been patiently waiting, and I, as chair, allowed this conversation a little off track, but related to what's in front of us this evening, because it is an important conversation, needs to take place in charter and rules, hopefully as soon as possible. I don't see it as simple as everybody else does. I've been vocal about this, and I think I hope people are listening, because my vote depends upon, what I've been expressing as a concern. There's nothing wrong with the extension of a CAFRO through the mayor's office, okay? It's a high-paid position, though, and we have to consider that into affordability, but that's all right. The treasurer's office, the treasurer is appointed temporarily by the city council. It is still an elected position. Only the charter change can change that. It's not a temporary change, it's a permanent change. And, I have a feeling, because DLS is on support of it, and because most of the Commonwealth has made similar changes, that it could get through the state legislature and the governor without the usual forcing us to have a ballot question, which usually they do when it's a permanent change to government structure. What I need to get my support, I'm in support of eliminating the elected position for treasurer, but what I need to get, what needs to take place for me to support this is the checks and balance. The city council appoints the auditor, okay? So if we're gonna take the treasurer off the roll, and this is the treasury, okay, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Then I would propose, because there is nothing else been proposed, the city council appoints the treasurer. Now we have to define the definition of who the CAFRO, what that position is. The chief financial officer, the mayor, oversees all of government. It's kind of hard when you have two of the key people appointed by the city council, but I believe by ordinance, we have talked about this in the past, about the day-to-day, operations being the mayor's responsibility. However, within no hiring and firing, because the city council appoints the auditor and the city council appoints I'm proposing the city council appoints the treasurer. The reason I say that is, Mayor Garcia, and I respect you, and I would have no problem, but you're not going to be mayor forever. No one is. I think you're going to be mayor for a long time if you so choose, but you might run away, as some other mayors have done too, but that's okay. We don't always, the voters choose the mayors, and you have to respect that. Some mayors see things different, play things different. And that's why with the treasury, the auditor, I want the checks and balance to be in place.
Yep.
That's what we have in place right now. Although I agree the elected part for treasurer doesn't work, it's a checks and balance. The person who is the keeper of the treasury is elected by the voters, not by the mayor, not by the city council, except temporary, for the city council. We only had 3 choices to put Rory there. One was Rory. There was 2 other choices. One was I believe the gentleman from Pennsylvania, who was probably the most qualified, but how do you put someone from Pennsylvania into an elected position? Because even though it's temporary, Rory is currently an elected official, an acting but elected official. I can point to
That
what
was
happened
bad.
last year. I can point to what happened in 1991.
There was something in the charter about like you have to live in the city for 2 years before appointed into elected role or something. That's what happened. That's why.
Well, we may have gotten away with, no one's going to say anything if we all were in agreement, but I didn't hear the commitment. I heard the gentleman say he owned a condo over here, which he bought or is purchased for his daughter who's going to school somewhere in New England. And then that's one thing, but I didn't hear a commitment that he was going to uproot his family. And he was very qualified and a nice gentleman. I think he could have done a great job. But that commitment from and I'm getting really off track here. That's water over the dam. But I'm just wanting to put my 2 cents in because everybody said it, and I'm more than willing to listen, but the checks and balance needs to be there before I vote yes.
So the checks and balance. Right now we have a check and a balance. So the council has the legislative balance with appointing the auditor, which again, I think of smaller towns, you have the moderator who's essentially the council president, the legislative body of the townspeople that appoints a 3-member or 5-member finance board that is like is the legislative check. And then you have we have the elected treasurer who represents the executive side. I think, in Springfield, TJ Plant, everyone speaks so highly about him. It was the comptroller for the whole city responsible to the mayor, and there's your check. And so by keeping, I think nothing can be paid or anything without the accounting approval. A check can't be made or whatever the case. So I think maintaining that appointment of the city accountant through the council and having the treasurer responsible to, let's say we do bring in a CAFO, or the mayor, or the CAFO responsible to the mayor, there's your checks and balance system. Now, that's just
I disagree. That's where I disagree. And that's why nobody's listening to what I'm saying.
I think that, I'm not saying let's do this. I'm sharing, I guess my opinion, but it's
I understand, and I'm being respectful.
It's also
but I just want you to understand what I'm saying is
it's a form that
the treasurer. We don't approve things that happen in the treasurer's office. That's a day-to-day function of It's one thing to say the auditor will oversee what's in the treasury and accounts receivable and reconciling the monies, and we know that's our biggest problem right now. The auditor can't even do that because we can't get the information to the auditor's office. And if the mayor is directly, or the CAFRO, I think the mayor has to appoint the CAFRO, but the CAFRO's responsible for the treasurer, that means the mayor is responsible for reconciling the cash of the treasury. No.
The CAFO. But
I stop right there. It's a no from Joe McGivern, okay?
I get all that. All I'm saying is the model that I'm sharing with you, and you're talking about the checks and the balance and the accountability. The model I'm sharing with you is one that was offered by the DLS and one that good running local governments across the Commonwealth have adopted. We don't have to adopt that. I'm just saying that that's the model that I'm thinking if we want to get a much more efficient and flexible government rolling. But again, the community's overseers, which is us, the elected people, city council and the mayor, having this discussion to figure out what's going to be the model that's going to work for Holyoke. And whatever that model is, the goal is to strengthen internal controls. That's the goal for all of us. And so we have to figure out what the best model is we want to adopt so that we can just strengthen internal controls, because the day-to-day stuff, managing contracts, following procurement laws, making sure that payroll is being, those aren't, that's not the politics of it. That's day-to-day management liability stuff that we need to do. But the checks and balance system you want to adopt is what we gotta talk about and figure out. So I'm in agreement. I'm just sharing
I
an
know.
opinion of a model. That's all.
I know, but well, anyways, I think enough is said about, and it's important, this whole conversation, but we have $250,000 before us. I'm in favor of a yes vote for the 250. I also would be in favor of a quarterly breakdown of this amount, if it means we can get 9 votes to keep this consultant going.
Do I have to resubmit and just kind of do a
Well, we gotta have a quick discussion on that and see what we want to do. But Councilor Tomlin had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mayor, I think we sort of got off the real discussion here about this order a little bit, but not that I didn't enjoy the conversation and understanding what we're trying to do here, but this point about the money, I mean, I think that first $300,000 when we first started talking about it was something that the council said, well, this will probably take care of it. And we wanted to see some reports, and not until last month and the month before did we start seeing some reports and actually met the person who was running Mass Munifin. So now I think my opinion is I don't want to go another 2 years, right now. I'd like to do the piecemeal thing and get reports. And I didn't know we were even paying them now because I thought after that last $50,000 it was done. But it's sort of hard to get out of that because the work has already started there. And we've seen that there has been some improvement there over the last few months, and how money has been coming in and there has been some work. My opinion is also with my colleagues is trying to get a couple temporary persons in there. If they already hired one, that's fine. So they could try to work on what has to be done in day to day. And then with the consultant slowly showing the employees, well, this is something that we have to do now for reconciling and get things over to the auditor. And it's not an easy fix. And I know that this department has been struggling over the last several years. I mean, we've seen it. I've been here, and the last 10 years, what the outside auditor has been saying about how we need some work in this department. I don't know, since the last 4 or 5 years, I think I've seen 3 or 4 treasurers in there, maybe 5, acting treasurers. So that's part of the problem. Things didn't get done. Things didn't get taken care of. And when you have people moving in and out of an office, things don't get taken care of. The employees probably aren't doing the work. Well, I got another treasurer coming in next week, another acting treasurer. I got somebody from another department. I got somebody from the DPW coming in. I got somebody from the auditor's department coming in. So things just got disarrayed. And I know it needs work. And I know Rory's heart is there to do it. I mean, he's not a treasurer really. He's an accountant. But one thing that we haven't discussed, we got an election next month, and I think he's the only one on the ballot, to run for the position. How do you change that? I mean, if we can take that up to be elected a person, and now say he gets elected on November 7th, we got somebody that's, we put it out there that we need an elected position in a year. Does he go away in a year? I mean, what's it, a 4-year term?
It's in
Oh, it's a 2 years.
2026.
Okay. I thought it was a 4-year term at one time.
It is.
So 2 more years. So the next 2 years, we have to keep them pretty much. Or do you say, no, we got somebody else in mind? I mean, I don't know how that, technically, would that
He
happen?
said he would resign if we found.
He did say it, but would he? He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. So I'm in favor. I mean, I think I'm on board with, the piecemeal. I'd like to see some reports. I'd like to see what's happening after maybe monthly reports. What have you done? How much money have you saved? How much reconciling have you done? Is things getting over to the auditor in time in a timely fashion? That's all important. And if there can be some temporary help, account temps in there for the next couple of months, and we could use that money, to sort of shore up things that's not being done. That's where I see it. And I know it's difficult. I know we're waiting on things. Councilor Vacan said she's going to take that up out of that charter and rules. If she can do that, I'm in favor of that, to try to move along. But we also have to think of, the position that he's running for next month. And I think he's the only one on the ballot. So I don't know how that all goes for the next 2 years. So that's something we have to be cognizant of, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify so that the people at home watching, so the order that to make the treasurer an appointed position, that order was taken out of committee, was voted out of committee in summer, and then city council sent it back in August. I just wanted to clarify that it hasn't just been sitting in committee for that stretch of time.
For the whole 2 years.
Yeah, that it wasn't there just like that. It was literally taken up in committee in the summer and then voted back into committee by this council in August.
It failed to have a 2/3 vote, which is
Right.
necessary.
Right, which,
So, but the importance of keeping the discussion going, it was referred back to committee.
right,
Right.
but I didn't want people at home thinking, wow, they're doing this, they're being obstructionists themselves or whatever. I don't want that message going out there because I don't think the whole city council or any of us really want to be looking at, being looked at through that
Right,
lens.
yeah. We don't, a lot of us don't like being called obstruction.
Yeah.
I don't know who would ever call us that. But anyways.
Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. On that note, perfect, you teed it up perfect, beautifully. Thank you, Juan. So anyways, I think we should move forward with let's chop this up in quarters, okay? Give this one back to the auditor. Come in, Mayor, with the $62,500 or whatever a quarter of this is. Move us for the next few months. Let's do the benchmarks and the progress reports. Let's see how it's going. As far as where we're going with all of this in terms of the long-term solution, one, we got to count on Rory for his word, right? If his word isn't any good, we got bigger problems than all of this. I do feel that ultimately, and what I'm suggesting, so Izzy's understanding is that we recruit the new treasurer, whoever this person is. And part of the dilemma that we had in the summer time was who appoints the treasurer. Back to the Joe McGivern point, right? This one said the mayor appoints the treasurer under the new system.
That's why it didn't.
And that's why that didn't get critical mass, because I don't think everybody on the council was on board to just hand the future forever treasurer appointment to the mayor. So that needed more discussion. So we need to have that discussion. You're 100% right. So, but hopefully we will count on Rory to continue to do his work as our interim. Let's have this consultant keep chipping away. I really think we need to post for the treasurer. Let's start working on this CAFO position, get the job description. Let's do that. That, by the way, is going to require a charter change as well, by the way. That wasn't discussed here, but that will also need a charter change. So there's a lot of structural stuff here to work together, but I'm sure together we can get it done. I think we all want, at the end of the day, the same thing, So we want good checks and balances. We want what is good for the taxpayers, which is these departments, particularly our treasurer department, working effectively. And I like the idea, if they hired one of the people, great. Let's get some temporary assistance. So they got all 5 chairs filled down there. We gave them the money, use it, for the operation of the department. So I guess my motion, Mr. Chairman, will be to send this $250 back to the auditor and request the mayor to give us $62,500 or whatever a quarter of this is.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded that we return the request for $250,000 back to the auditor, back to the mayor, under that has been made and seconded, quick discussion. Again, I would not be afraid to vote for the $250, but I would not be afraid to vote for the quarterly, Mr. Mayor. The quarterly would be the 62.5. I would suggest maybe, and I'm not sure if everybody else would agree with this, but if you gave us 2 separate orders for 62.5 for next Tuesday, one we can vote on, one we'll put into committee and use that to have the quarterly report by the time September for October.
I like it.
If that makes sense. Hopefully the consultant, because she was lukewarm to this when I asked her this in the meeting where we had Sarah here, but hopefully she'll agree to it. And I think I know her reputation is part of what she gave reason to, but I think at the same time, I think we're we're extending an olive branch to say we'd like to see her, with her knowledge, keep going. I researched, you mentioned a community that wasn't mentioned that night, Mayor, but I did research a couple of communities she worked in, one that's very close to the city of Holyoke, and I think the work she did there does speak well of her and speak well of what needs to be done here. And then the rest of it, good luck in charter and rules. Any further discussion? All right, motion on the floor is returned with the hope of two supplemental, or at least one supplemental request for transfers at our meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 7.
So take number 7 off the table.
Motion made second, we take item 7 off the table. It's a communication from Meg McGrath Smith, the CPA project list as we requested in this committee. It's a response to that request. We have received, everybody's got a copy, a detailed. I put it on the agenda to hope it would go hand in hand with a couple of quick discussions we're going to have coming up. Unfortunately, the CPA is meeting tonight, and it looks like they are still meeting. And for that reason, Megan McGrath Smith is not here with us. But is there any discussion or any thoughts?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I just want to thank Meg and maybe the law department. This was really well done. This is exactly what I was looking for. The key point here to my colleagues is when we give money to people and for historic preservation and otherwise, there's supposed to be a follow-up, either a covenant or a deed restriction put on the property that they don't just turn around, take our money, and not do what they're supposed to do with the money. So I really appreciate this follow-up. I do have a few questions of it, minor, but I'll follow up either with the law department or with Meg, and we'll take it from there. But I'm good on this information request having been completed, and a lot of them obviously are city property, so that doesn't come into it. But about half of them are private entities. So those do require, some of them I'll want to check if they were recorded. It looks like some of them are in progress, but I like how we're accounting for all of this, and I thought they did a really nice job putting this together. So I consider it complied with.
Well said, and I do thank Meg too. I wish she could be here tonight because she is a wealth of knowledge, but I can attest to the fact that the CPA committee is tough. They're tough with everybody.
Yep.
And I know a number of different agencies here, but we'll be making an announcement very shortly from the Friends of the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round about the money that was used for, for one is Lancelot, which is the lead horse that, it's an incredible story. As we know, the merry-go-round's an incredible story, but Lancelot in 1986 was appraised alone at $125,000.
Wow.
One horse.
One horse.
And that horse has been restored by the National Historic Society through a grant through the CPA, and we will be unveiling that horse in the near future. And there'll be some announcements to make, but everybody will be invited to enjoy Lancelot being back in Holyoke.
Nice.
And that's not the only one. There's other horses that have been done, but that's the premier horse of the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round, which is not owned by the Friends of the Merry-Go-Round. It's owned by everybody. The Friends are just the caretakers. So the motion made and second, this was complied with, and I think we just keep it in committee. Jeff, we'll just keep it in the archives. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 8 off the table.
Motion made and second, we take item 8 off the table for discussion. This is introduced by Councilor Jordan that the law department provide the city council with the legal opinion, related documentation ensuring that the CPA committee of the city of Holyoke are not violating any anti-aid amendments, Mass Constitutional Amendment, Article 46, Section 2, as amended by Article 103, to provide various CPA dollars to private parties, including but not limited to copies of all historic preservation restrictions placed on all property deeds, copies of public agreements for all recipients, copies of mandatory repayment requirements. If property is sold and related, please confirm the compliance with the state law for all recipients, including by the profit entities, and inform of us of the recipients are advised that such safeguards are required. The city council will want to review all the paperwork to ensure that the safeguards are in place. Councilor Jordan, I know we've discussed this before.
This has now been complied with because it was from this request that generated the communication from Meg and the law department and everybody involved, so we're good. So 8 is complied with.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? The motion is complied with, and that's exactly why it's here, also with the next couple of items coming up. Is there no further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
We take 9 and 10 together, or would you like to separate?
Why not? Right?
We can take them together.
I sort of-
Discussion anyways. right?
Discussion, yeah, for discussion?
Yeah. Motion made second, we take items 9 and 10 together as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 9 is the actual veto from Mayor Garcia. He vetoed the original ballot question that was passed by the city council to be placed on the November 23rd election. That has been sitting on the table. The full city council was referred back to committee, I think with the purpose of discussion in mind with item number 10. Item number 10 is old and new at the same time. It's an order introduced by Councilor Bacon, Jordan, and Puelo, an order that the ballot question approved by the city council, which is the one that the mayor vetoed, to be placed on the ballot for November 4th of 2024, as referenced in the 9/26/23 decision by Judge Mulqueen. The ballot question, the wording, my understanding is the same wording, exact same wording, and that there is some summary and as always with ballot questions, summary of questions and information made available both by proponents and opponents, which is the way ballot questions should go. So both of these are here for discussion, mostly because someone yelled and screamed at the full city council meeting week before.
Did you? I did.
Referring to himself.
I thought you were going to ask me why I was so upset.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't.
I did ask that this be referred to committee, but to the makers of the order, before I ask a couple questions of the law department, would you like to say anything?
Yes.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I refiled the order in light of the judge's decision because one of the sentences in the judge's decision reads as follows. Economic loss is insufficient as irreparable harm, and there has been no showing of any other harm if the surcharge reduction question appears on the November 2024 ballot instead of November 2023, as agreed to by Defendant Garcia. Now, by the judge's reading of the law, she appears to be indicating in this sentence that the mayor has the authority to do that. And of course, we know that we voted it in the council to put it on the ballot this year, but we would, by this decision, need to change our vote to make it next year to comply with the judge's decision, as I understand it, which is why I refiled it, just to explain.
Thank you. Any further of the makers of the orders or any other members? Nope. I'll just weigh in quickly and see if we can get through this. Just historically, I voted in favor of the original ballot question for 2023. I thought the compromise that came through this committee, and I thank the original makers of that order, and agreed upon compromise, which was more dealing with the 1.5% to 1% language of the ballot question itself. I recognize that there are a lot of Hoyokers that want a chance to weigh in on this through the ballot process. I think some of them, when you talk to them, understand it's complex in terms of the original ballot question was more in general, but this ballot question obviously cannot be in general. It has to be more specific if change is going to take place. That makes it difficult to, and Megan McGrath came in on behalf of the CPA committee, had a wonderful presentation of what has taken place in that committee through the mayor's office, through the city council approval of the number of different projects, which is essentially what we also have a spreadsheet of here received this evening, but even before that, she went through in detail. But with that said, this is, and I respect all judges, believe me, not just because of where I work, but I understand it. But as elected officials, and this goes back to rulings by other Superior Court judges, I learned that as elected officials, judges certainly can encourage us to obey laws and to vote by the way laws are written, and we understand that, but they cannot tell us how to vote. So I have some, just some quick questions. One is housekeeping. I know our Attorney Bissonette is with us and Attorney Dagan is with us this evening from the Law Department. I had concerns about the mayor's veto because his reasons were that he pushed it out to 2024, where I was in favor of 2023, and therefore, on that veto, if we ever voted on it, I would have voted to override the veto because I wanted to see the question on 2023. However, I think some of his reasoning was certainly appropriate, and I have no problem with that. Is the veto now a moot point? The veto killed the original question. That's a question to the Law Department. A moot point because I believe we're time-wise gone by the acting on the veto.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes
Yes.
Attorney Bissonette. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The deadline, as I understand it, passed at the end of September. We're now into mid-October. And as a rule, those ballots for the November 7th election will have been sent out by mid-month. That would have satisfied all the post-preliminary election requirements for 10 days to request a recount. Not that anyone would in Ward 7, but as a matter of course, that has to be followed. So too late for this go-around, regardless of any action.
No, and I do understand the ballot deadline. I understand that went by. Our city clerk has kept us informed. We certainly understand that part. My question is, did the mayor's veto, and because of no action by the city council, kill the original ballot question as it was written and as it was proposed for 2023? There's been no ruling that I read from the courts and no ruling from anyone that the mayor can veto ballot questions. And that was a question that was raised at some point.
In reviewing Judge Mulqueen's decision, it's been our view that she did very specifically approve the use of a mayoral veto in this case.
Thank you. And on the question itself, we're sitting here where the 2023 election has not taken place. I'm not inclined to vote in favor of a ballot question for 2024 for a number of different reasons, but my question really is this current sitting council or any current sitting council legislative body allowed to place a ballot on a future election date when there is a municipal election coming up in less than 4 weeks?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Bissonette.
There is a school of thought, one which I adhere to, that says a legislative body, once its term is ended, adjourns sine die for all time. And then the swearing in of the next legislative body then begins a term anew. The Massachusetts House and Senate follow that rule, as does the United States Congress and House of Representatives. In most larger cities, they're not inclined, or they don't roll over legislative sessions, and bills do not roll over. So in this case, it would be very difficult to argue that the 2023 council could bind the 2024-25 council to this vote. I particularly also call attention to the fact that both outside counsel and the judge have pointed out that the city council must approve or endorse the actual action of reducing the CPA, as well as endorse putting it on the ballot. Two separate actions are required. And while an argument, I think, could be made with regard to the second part of that. I'm not sure that this council could bind the new council to the endorsement portion of the judge's ruling and as she sees what state law requires. So those are my thoughts on that, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate those thoughts. Two concerns are, one is we practice the opposite when it comes to legislature, undisposed of legislature, undisposed of orders by the city council, can continue to be acted upon. We've always followed that within the city, right or wrong. The second part, though, is once a legislative body in Holyoke, once we take a final action and we adjourn the meeting, there is no reconsideration of action. So if this body votes in favor of this language for 2024, my thoughts are there is no way to reverse that by the incoming city council, which could be very similar to, but there obviously will be some changes to the to the membership itself, and that's one of my concerns. And my other concern is why I'm having struggles voting for this is, as we talked about, Megan McGrath, and this is away from the law department for a minute. Megan McGrath, gave us a lot of good information, and not in just terms of projects the CPA has done, but the administrative costs of the CPA, the formula that the state monies from the Registry of Deeds, how it comes to the city itself, and even a look at how different communities across the Commonwealth have adopted different percentages in terms of CPA itself. And I just think, it'd be better, sometime next year for the new Holyoke City Council, newly elected, to look at those numbers before they decide on the language, although I really think the voters deserve a shot at some type of language. But with that in mind, that's my personal opinion. I'm just want to understand, what we can and what we can't do, whether we should be doing it or not, is a question we have to decide ourselves. Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette and Attorney Dagan. Appreciate it. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just point out that discussion with the chair of the CPA board was in the context of reducing it from 1.5 to 0.5. And after the concerns that were raised in that particular discussion is when we came out with the amended version. And again, I would just like to sort of emphasize the reason that I'm refiling it now is because the judge based her decision on the now. Now, I suppose next year there could be an argument about whether the vote of the council this year should stand or not. But nonetheless, the context of the decision, a third of the decision, was that, well, it's going to happen next year, so it's not a problem that it doesn't happen this year. And I would just further note, anybody could have made a motion to override the mayor's veto at any time that it was sitting on the table for 3 or 4 months. There were those of us who felt that the law was clear, that it was the legislature and the voters, right? But if other people didn't agree with that, anybody could have made a motion to override at any point in time. But nonetheless, we are where we are. And I just feel that on the one hand, I'm not obviously happy with the judge's decision. On the other hand, I think if we accept 2/3 of her decision, how do we throw out the other third that says part of why I'm doing and deciding what I'm deciding is because it will go on the ballot next year. So I would ask the committee to please vote it out affirmatively back to the council. The council will do what it will do. I hope we will get a majority vote like we did in the first place. And then next year will be next year when it comes, and we'll know what it is then. Thank you.
And points well taken. That on the information that we used especially from CPA, and information that we were aware of when we decided on the 1.5, the 1.0, reduction as part of the actual language, was based on known strongly projected, but known revenues that were coming in this particular year, which pretty much have held true. What I'm afraid of is those percentages are connected to what we were looking at as projected revenues. Next year's projected revenues could be a big difference, and we could knock out the administrative part of CPA if the revenues change drastically, which means a number of different reasons. More communities are involved where it eats up the pie as far as what comes in to through the registry of deeds. Less revenues are coming in, but the percentage changes and the way monies are used in the three categories and so forth. But that's my thoughts.
And then it
That's-
could have a
yeah.
more negative effect on the taxpayers as well.
I believe the taxpayers, I thought the taxpayers should be having a vote in 4 weeks. I'm not against that. I told Al I would vote for it because I think the CPA has done a wealth of good for the city, both city property and some some historical property owned privately or owned by not-for-profits. And I think it's wonderful what it's done. I think even the biggest housing thing, which is some people's fears that CPA did, is we're all proud of, and that's the Library Park project itself. It's incredible, and I hope there's more projects like the Library Park project, and we will see a big difference in a number of neighborhoods in terms of replenishing and good and needed housing, but at the same time doing it in such a way that it complements the entire neighborhood and the entire city. But that's my thoughts, and that's why I wanted it in committee. Is Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, all good points. Again, just by way of the historical on this, whether you're for or against, I sort of take an agnostic position on the whole thing. I mean, my whole thing on this is let the public just vote. That's my take on it is the same argument I made in 2016 to allow the public to vote, despite the heat I had from a number of people that said, why are you putting a tax increase on the ballot? Because it's your city. And I'm not going to deny the citizens the right to vote on it. And I voted then to put it on the ballot. And if they want to have a right to reduce it by from 1.5 to 1, God bless them. And however the public votes, they vote. It's your city. So you can make good arguments for it. Some people argue it's just another tax, and and others say, look at the wonderful projects, and there are many wonderful projects, and I support nearly all of them. But nevertheless, what I find interesting about the most recent discussion, what I would like the law department to weigh in, if they would be kind enough to do it, is this notion about the current city council cannot vote on putting this on the ballot now. Because what I find interesting is the state statute says the city council shall vote to place it on the next city election. Okay, the next city election. Well, if was November 2023, and if this council could vote to put it on the November 2023 ballot, then basically what we've been hearing was totally inappropriate then, essentially, if what the law department is saying now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this council could not vote to change it to say 2024. Because if I'm listening carefully now, is they're saying the 2024 city council would have to vote to put it on the 2024 ballot. That is new information. That has never come, because the mayor and the council, who didn't want it on this year but wanted it next year, what they were basically proposing, they weren't allowed to propose. Okay? Because what they're saying is the 2023 council couldn't vote to put it on. Now, the statute to me says next city election. Well, when's the next city election? Well, when we voted on it, it was November of 2023, right? Now it's, by the way, it doesn't say, well, you pick an election that you want to put it on. It says the next, okay? That's in the statute. I'd love to hear what Attorney Bissonnette thinks about that, but I believe that, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that sentence is in there. Second point is, so now if we vote, since this election is not eligible, because there is a clause that says 35 days before the election, which we're well beyond that now. This council, if we voted in November or October 17th or whenever, it would be for November 2024. Where does it say anywhere? Maybe the law department could give us an opinion where it says the council on October 17th cannot vote on something for the next city election. Where does that say that anywhere? Could we get an opinion on that? I know, I'd like to see that if we could. That would be really helpful to us. Because that kind of hinges because basically now the alleged new impediment is this council for the rest of the year can now no longer vote on anything for the next city election. That it has to be the January 2024 city council that has to now vote to put it on the November 2024. Can we get that in a legal opinion, please? Because I would like to read that and understand the logic behind that, what the Massachusetts legislature does or Congress does. I'd like to know about the Holyoke City Council. Because I don't see that anywhere in the statute. It just says the city council shall vote to place it on the next city election. So now it's November 2024. And yes, Judge Moak, basically what was argued in court was, hey, it's not irreparable harm. You could have it next year. So this is what was told to the judge, and the judge agreed. She said, yeah, in my opinion, you can have it in November 24. That's not the end of the world, so have it in November of 2024. Okay. That's what everybody wanted. That was on that side of it that's been advocating for 2024. So let's do that. So if now there's this new impediment that for the remainder of this year, this city council can't put it on the November 2024 ballot, I think it would be helpful, Mike, if you could expand, and put something together for us on a legal opinion. That would be really helpful. Because actually that's kind of an interesting, what you're saying, because that may actually have other context, right? Because we don't, just like Joe mentioned, we don't scrap it all at the end of the year, and we tend to, we don't make everybody refile every order. That's kind of not how we operate here. But if there is something legally, that would be new information. I'd be interested to hear that. So I'll keep an open mind. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
Well, Councilor Tomlin hasn't had a chance.
Councilor Tomlin, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. And I was ready to put this on the ballot this year. I voted to put this on the ballot this year. And when the judge came back and said, everybody was talking, let's put it on November 24. And I said, well, if that's what has to happen, it happens. No matter what I feel, how I'm going to vote at CPA, it's a great program, it's great money, well spent. Let the people decide. Let the voters decide. And I never heard, I've been here for a lot of years, I never heard that all of a sudden I can't vote on things that are for next year. And I don't know how many times we've taken up orders for counselors that have been gone 1 year, 2 years down the road, and we take up orders that are in the jacket and we vote on them.
We do.
So I would also like to see that, Attorney Bissonnette, because I feel comfortable voting on this if we vote on it next week. I feel comfortable voting on this tonight. Let the voters decide. And I rarely have ever heard that all of a sudden you're taking away my vote because there's going to be a new councilor in 2024, so I can't vote when I'm duly elected in this term from 2022 to 2023. It's like you're taking away my vote to put something on the ballot that affects our community and our city. So I'd also like to see that. What's stopping me from voting something next year to put on a ballot? Because
is that financial transfers too?
Yeah, I mean, it could affect a lot of it. It could affect the tax rate. I mean, are we setting the tax rate in December possibly? It affects next year. So I really would like to see that. I'm willing to vote the subcommittee to vote on it next Tuesday night to put it on the ballot. Yeah.
I just think there's too many lame ducks around here. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bacon.
I'd just like to thank Counselor Tallman for his comments, and I ask that the committee vote it out to the council. And I would just note that if we had had that rule, we would have very vigorously argued that there was harm, because we would have known we couldn't put it on next year. And we didn't know that because it's never been true. Thank you.
I see Kathy has her hand up.
Attorney Dagan?
Yes, good evening, councilors. Thank you very much. One thing that I want to bring to your attention, and Mike mentioned it, and it has to do with the fact that when you do this, it's a two-step procedure. And after looking through minutes and, it was discovered by outside counsel that the two-step process wasn't followed. What that means is it was voted to put on the ballot, but there was never a separate vote, okay, to actually reduce the surcharge. And that's quite frankly something I didn't, because I didn't review the minutes, I didn't see it. But I think if this is going to happen, and you're going to vote out of committee, you want to have the separate vote saying, yes, we agree to reduce this the surcharge from 1.5 to 1. Do that vote. Boom. Okay, you voted. Now, for purpose of clarity, amend the ballot question to indicate that on such and such a day, the city council voted to reduce the surcharge from 1.5% to 1. Then you continue to say what we already said, that the council also voted to put it on a ballot. So there's that process that if you're going to do this, we need to indicate, we need to do that. So I just wanted to be clear so people understood.
Can I ask a question on that?
Counselor Jordan?
Kathy, of course, all of this was handled by the law department. You guys wrote the ballot question. So the other thing is, this language, as I understand it, was taken exactly as it was in 2016. That was what the law department used, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the case. And it states on there that the council, without taking a position, puts this forward, blah, blah, blah. That's the language that's used in the ballot question. So are you suggesting that it wasn't validly adopted, perhaps, in 2016 because the council put on the ballot question that it says the council without taking a recommendation?
No, I don't. And the reason why is if you look to the outside legal opinion, the issue wasn't with the way the ballot question was drafted. It was that we didn't do the first part when it was voted. So I'm suggesting that we needed to do two separate votes. So it's not really, the reason why this was a problem wasn't the way the ballot question was drafted. It was the way the vote was actually taken. That's why I'm making the suggestion.
Okay, did we go back? Because what occurred here is exactly what occurred to put it on the ballot. There was no two votes in 2016 either. So because essentially what we're being told now is we need a vote that says we approve it subject to the voters approving it? Is that what you're suggesting? Or is it that, because we don't want to take per se a position, we're taking a neutral, that leave it up to them position on it.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not indicating that was wrong. I'm not only doing it for purpose of clarity, so no one will say, hey, you didn't do it right. But I stand back, you really have to make two separate votes, okay? If you do that, I mean, if you want to leave the question the way it is, I would want to make it clear that the two-step process was taken. I'm not saying the whole process has been invalidated, no.
Can you write up for us what the first process, the other one should be so that we do it right, in your opinion?
Do you want a legal opinion on this?
Well, not an opinion, but you should give us the other draft item. If there's a second vote, just make sure that we do it, because this whole process, we've leaned on you guys to draft the question. As best as I can tell, this is exactly what we did the last time with the exact wording. We just changed the dates.
Yeah, and I understand, Counselor, and I'm not trying to call into question. No, that wasn't the problem.
Okay.
But I just wanted to be clear. So if this goes forward and someone says, "Well, did you vote on it? Did you vote on it separately?" So I'm just talking for clarity purposes. And yes, I can draft that change.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Yep.
Thank you, Attorney. I think, we just felt, the language which the Law Department captured perfectly, what was coming out of the Finance Committee in 2016, was what we were voting on to place on the ballot. And that the language of the ballot question captured what the city council was trying to do. But if you need 2 votes, just, as Councilor Jordan said, just let us know and let the president know, so we'll make the motions correctly.
Okay.
Councilor Bacon?
Just to make sure I understand, but we can still take a vote that says we're voting not to take a position on what the answer should be, and then a separate vote to say we want it on the ballot.
No, I think you want to vote that you're actually voting to reduce the surcharge from 1.5 to 1%. That's a separate vote. You have to vote that first. Then you want to vote to put it on the ballot. So,
But what the counselor just said was that the city council did not want to take a position on the question. They just simply wanted to put it before the voters to make their decision.
But, yeah, and I'm not saying that the ballot question was wrong or that language was wrong. What I'm saying is, for the purpose of the statute, okay, you need to be clear that you're actually voting to reduce it. Then you're voting to put it on the ballot. That's what I'm saying. So, I'm just saying you have 2 votes, 2 separate votes, that's all I'm saying. And you would have the ballot, when you vote to put the ballot, the question on the ballot, you would have a version of the one you want to put on. So I'm not trying to make this any more complicated or anything.
That's the problem, and I'll use myself as an example, because I'm in favor of putting the ballot question on the ballot because enough voters have asked for it, but I'm going to vote no to the ballot question. So I'm not going to vote yes on the reduction as a city councilor, because I'm going to vote no. And if there's not a 2/3 vote on the reduction 1.5 to 1% by the council, then we can't put it on the ballot question?
That doesn't sound right.
Oh, no, you have to, under the law, under that, again, I'm referring to the outside legal opinion. Under the law, there is a 2-step process. So it's a little bit interesting that there's a concern, and I guess I understand it, but I think if the council doesn't want to vote to reduce it, I think that's an issue. I thought that the folks, who were voting yes wanted to vote to reduce it.
No, we wanted to vote to,
Chairman, can I?
and if I may, Mr. Chairman.
The whole thought is to give it to the voters.
Correct. Kathy, this is, now,
told us this
maybe this is new information, then I think it goes to, was this validly adopted in the first place then? Because in 2016, if you go back in the minutes and you go back and look, because I believe you guys did go back and research what was given to Mayor Morse at that time, you will not see 2 votes. You will not see a vote that says we vote to create the CPA. As a matter of fact, the ballot question even said in 2016, the council places this on the ballot without a recommendation.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we're saying here, is because our point is, we're not trying to tell the voters what to do. We're not trying to lead them to a result. Let them pick whatever they want.
Right.
And we're not weighing in on it in that regard. We're just saying, here's your opportunity to vote. And that was what was done in 2016.
No, I understand that. And what I'm you're asking questions about the opinion, about what the judge has indicated, and I'm simply bringing to your attention, there's clarification on what the judge said and clarification in terms of what the outside legal counsel said. Quite frankly, if you want to put this on the ballot the way it is, and there's no challenge to it, then, what can I say? I just noted that there was legal opinion that indicated that it was unclear, and I'm going to read exactly what it said, what this opinion said. He wrote that, and it's the page of his opinion.
Kathy, can you just tell us who are you reading from?
The outside legal opinion from K&P.
I've never seen that.
But this is the legal opinion that this body requested.
They
And,
gave it to us.
And it says that please be aware, as noted above, the acceptance of the Community Preservation Act is a two-step process involving approval by the city council and acceptance by the voters at the ballot. So, I think, I mean, unless you think I'm misreading what he said, and maybe you are.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I guess what he said, whoever he is, that's fine, but that's not binding either. You know, it's an opinion to us. Our process has always been, we adopt the language according to what we try to be fair, to give the voters the choice that most of us think the voters want the choice, regardless of how as individuals, how we want or will eventually as voters take our own position. And that's I think the only difference here. But whoever gave the outside opinion, I appreciate it, but it's not binding. Councilor Bacon?
No, it's not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 5 years ago, when we passed it, there was no challenge and there was no legal advice that we had done anything improper. Fast forward 5 years, we were told we need to do it exactly the same way that we did it 5 years ago. And we did it exactly the same way we did it 5 years ago, with our law department sitting in every meeting that we had. Fast forward, our disagreement was around the mayor's right, or the power of the mayor to veto the vote of the city council. That was the argument before the judge. In the decision, the judge simply said we didn't follow the rules, but the
Recording stopped.
The judge indicated that she felt that.
Can you hold on 1 second? Jeff? Sorry. Jeff, can you hear me? We're being recorded, correct? Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councilor Bacon. Yep.
Okay, so what the judge indicated in her decision was that, in her opinion, the CPA did not preempt or override the Holyoke City Charter, and that we failed to follow procedure for amending the surcharge as required. And so she didn't get into any references or any explanation about that statement. So my understanding about that statement is, because we didn't override the mayor's veto, the veto stood, and so therefore we didn't do our job under our charter. So you can interpret the judge's words any way you want, because the judge did not back up her words with what her thinking was to come to that conclusion. But it did become clear that she felt that the mayor could veto the vote of the council, and that we could have overridden it had we chosen to. But otherwise, there is nothing in the judge's opinion that says what we're being told tonight, and never before tonight were we ever told anything about needing 2 votes, or that the council had to decide to approve the reduction. I mean, and I heartily disagree with that, and I hope the committee will vote it out to council to give the voters the right to vote. I mean, it's just a fundamental right that I think we should uphold. But I appreciate the comments of the committee members, and I hope you will vote it out. Thank you.
If I may, Counselor, yes, I agree with you. The judge did not set forth any explanation. And you make an interesting point that it could have to do with reconsideration. And you're also right that the second opinion is not binding. So, we had this discussion. So there'll be no required 2 votes, and vote on the ballot question. I think you said you made the changes to the date, and that was the only change. So, then proceed. I just was simply, I want to be clear, because I didn't want to get
Recording
to the point
in progress.
if this happens, that, hey, why didn't you say this? Why didn't you warn us? So that's what I was trying to do. But some valid points were made here. So
I hear you, thank you, but to the committee, we would have to change October 3rd.
Oh, is that the date?
Because I did put October 3rd being an optimist.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I make?
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, real quickly. So unless I hear something, and I'd like Mike over the next week to come up with the legal opinion, but unless we have something that says this council can't vote on it, we would need to see that. I think we should proceed. But if there is something from the law department, I'll keep an open mind that says this council for the rest of this year cannot vote on this. I'll give the law department a full crack at it, to show us, and that would be appreciated. But other than that, I think we should follow through and put it on next year's ballot then, unless there's a good argument not to, and use the same language.
Any further discussion? Okay, so
I've been having my hand for a little
Councilor
while.
Rivera, you know what? I'm sorry, but it's not showing real clear this evening. My apologies. I see it, but it's faint. But Councilor,
So I guess there's a couple points to be made, right? With regards, thank you, Attorney Degnan, for bringing up the rest of that statement put out by the judge with regards to not taking the actual that process that was referred to, right? And then the judge's opinion is not binding. It's true. I agree with that. And the piece, though, is that the judge made their decision based on the information and the evidence provided to them. And I'm pretty sure that KP law opinion was probably included in the evidence provided to them, which kind of helped or maybe guided her decision. But again, she didn't clearly state that in the reading, even though that is probably some of the evidence that was given to her in helping her making this decision that she made. But we'll disregard that. And just pay attention to what we want to do in a sense as a council. I respect that as well too. But I think that in the future, if another council or the future council, because I may not be on that council, if they decide to take up suit with regards to the way the process got put together, understand that there's already a legal opinion that has been put forth and weighed on by a judge around the processes. So in court, it might not hold up. If the next council decided to take up suit, like a similar, like just happened recently, just saying.
Councilor Paulo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I'm kind of taking an issue with, and I understand what everybody's saying with the second process and what the other steps are that we have to do, but with the second opinion that we got from KP Law, I think it's really important to hear from the law department as far as the first vote. Because a lot of, like the legal opinion is there, the second one, so if that's the case, then, I mean, the first go-around for the CPA was done improperly. So what does that actually mean? I think we need to get more information on that. I mean, if that's what we're going to go by and we've got the second opinion, I understand it's not binding, but we need to clarify if that was done improperly, then I think we got a bigger problem here than the ballot question.
I appreciate that. Every ballot question I voted on over the last 44 years has always been one vote. And maybe we've been wrong for 44 years or more. I'm not sure. But if no one
Chairman,
on whatever level objects, then we're okay.
If I may real quick, though, a quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to put, so when the CPA first came about and they wanted to put it on the ballot, no counselor filed an order to put it on the ballot.
No, that's not, Councilor Rivera, that's not the issue. What the issue is,
I'm just asking for clarity.
No, it's a good question. So let me help you with it. Yes, a motion came in, the exact same wording, came in, and the council voted, I believe at the time, it was 10-3, because at that time we had 15 members still.
What I'm asking, though, is like what we filed, like this week, we have to file orders. Come Tuesday, it comes forth. The language didn't come out in that first file order, right? Somebody filed an order for it to come up.
The law department,
So that first order is the first vote.
The language, we had to agree upon the percentage, which ends up being the 1.5. There were three choices in the state statute as to CPA as to what percentage you want to use as a community.
I get that piece, but I guess what I'm understanding here is that we never took a vote for it to go to the council in the first place to do that conversation. Like, the vote should have, at least to what I'm understanding to the KP law, right, is that it should have came forward to the council. We're going to take a vote on talking about changing or reducing the CPA. Whether you're for it or against it, we're just going to take a vote on bringing this forward. And then after that comes in the conversation about the order for the conversation about changing whether you want to go up, down, sideways, or wherever you want to go. But the first order has to be that we're going to have this conversation. And it sounds like that didn't happen.
No, I think what we're learning, or it's being suggested to us from the outside counsel, is that we're actually supposed to take a position in favor
That's not what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like that. I mean, that may be what you guys are understanding right now. I'm understanding it differently. So what I'm understanding is that it has to be put forth, right, for us to vote on, regardless if we want to vote on it up or down, right? If we want it on there. So you don't technically have to take a position. You could be like saying, I'm voting for it to be on the ballot, right? Because you have the right.
Right.
Like you guys are saying.
And that's what we did last time, and that's what we wanted to do this time. Yeah.
But I guess it's not, this time that's not what happened, though. This time it went straight to the language. And it instead of doing the first step. But
No, Councilor Rivera, we always have to have, the final vote is always with the actual language that goes on the ballot. Otherwise, nobody would vote for it because you don't know what you're voting for. So after it went to committee, we discussed what language, statute dictates some language. We asked the help of the law department, but our choice was the percentage. And the first time we chose the 1.5. This time there's a suggestion to offer voters to reduce it to a 1.0 if they so choose. If they say no, it stays at 1.5.
okay. But that was just one step. But
Item 9, a quick suggestion, the veto, that we just refer it back to the full city council.
Yes.
Suggest they receive it. You can't vote on it because
Right,
it's
just received.
not only is the ballot deadline gone by, but the veto deadline's gone by, and it's mute no matter what we do. Just that they're supposed to.
Between you and I don't think there is technically a veto deadline.
No, but because of the ballot deadline. the veto
Now, that would be,
Yeah.
that's a deadline, yes,
So
yes.
we could override it and then nothing's gonna happen.
Exactly. No, just
So
receive.
let's not go back and have that discussion.
Agreed.
So just suggest that they receive it and whatever we do with
Correct.
it, we do with something received. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on final item, number 10, the actual proposal to put the language on for 2024. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Got a motion been made and second to adopt. I'm just going to clarify my vote. I'm not against putting the ballot question on at the moment. I'm afraid of the language, and we can do it, I think, from what we've heard this evening. I'm just suggesting down the road, a city council may be better equipped to make a decision on the percentage once we know revenue projections for next year. But that's just my humble opinion. On the motion to adopt, is there any further discussion? Councilor Bacon?
Just that October 3rd would have to become.
We should make that
potentially
amendment right now.
17th.
Yeah. We should amend it to the actual, do we know the election date?
Oh, no, the election date is correct, but if it is voted out
Would be
of
changed to
council,
October 17th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the
Yeah.
letter.
I got you.
Yeah, the
Okay.
17th, yeah.
Yeah, we just amend the motion to October 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that amendment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And on the original motion to adopt, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? 4-1? No. 3-2. And that will go to committee on Tuesday, and I am going to keep an open mind and may change my mind on Tuesday, but I just want to think more about what I stated about the revenue part.
Well, and we were going to ask, the law department is going to get back to us on the whole 23 council and all that. That's kind of,
And a side vote, just an amendment that this copy be sent to the law department on that particular question.
yes, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made second to adjourn. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed?
Have a good night.
We stand adjourned.
Have a good
All right,
night.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good meeting.
Yeah,
job.
very good meeting.
Good job.
Interesting.